Hello everyone. For the lab of today, you will have the Power with Linux commands, such that for your environment, you can use the link which is provided here on Moodle. Okay, so it will be exactly this website for which you will be using Ubuntu. Alright, and you will see it over here as it appears, so you can open your terminal. Okay. Now, as a recap, you have Linux as an operating system, okay, which you can make it work based on the hardware. So you have the hardware in the middle as being the heart of your system. And then you've got the kernel such that you will be able to access all the commands, the shell commands. So you have bash, for example, you have the cut, the environment with program like VI in order to edit files. And based on all of this, based on hardware, kernel, and shell, you are able to use application programs, email, the file transfer protocol, the database management system, and everything is based on all these commands such that you will be using the hardware components according to your software. Okay. All of this, for example, for the current user, you can change the password with passwd. Then, based on a certain path, which you can find out. So you have the print working directory, which is this one. You can do the listing, or you have the ls-l. And in this way, you see that this D means that it is a directory. And then you have the permissions one by one. Okay, so you have the user permissions, the group permissions, okay, the general permissions. And whether you do have a line, it means that in fact it is a file. So you have this list with -l, or you have also the -la to list absolutely everything that you got here. Okay. Then what you can use is a command like who am I to see the user, and the user is the one which comes exactly in front of this at. Okay, so it on works for this machine. Or for your tutorial, you can also use Oracle virtual machine and to start Oracle machine based on Ubuntu, for example. But for the meaning of this tutorial, you will have this online link. Then you can also see the users who are logged in with the command with the users. Or you can also see more details about that user with who you can log out of your system, as well as you can shut it down immediately with halt. You can also power it off with init of 0. Rebooting means that you can write init of 6, and then you can have the similar command with power off, or simply writing reboot letter by letter, as well as you have the shutdown command. Then you can also go to the home directory, okay, with cd tilde. So if I go here inside documents, and then I have a cd tilde, okay, it will go back to the root. Also, you can go to the last directory which you used, okay, with the cd minus, or you can simply specify the whole path with cd and you go until that point. Then what you can also do is to create a directory with mkdir, and let's say that we have the computer network directory, and you can even enter it with cd and you're inside, as well as you can see the path. Then what you can do is to have a make mkdir with -p such that you have so whether the folder does not exist, then you will also create it. Okay, so here if you don't have temporary and the whole path, it will create it for you. As well as you can have the remove of your directory. So, but don't forget that you have it empty. So I can remove CN. Okay, so if I list it, it won't exist anymore. But if I make CN and I enter CN and then I have touch, I create a file t.txt and then I want to remove. Okay, it will say, sorry, it is rm dir of CN. Okay, this is not empty, so you need a command with remove -r to have a recursive delete for your folder, which is CN, and now it got erased. What you can also do is to rename it. So maybe we want 10k here of CN, and then I want to rename it as, okay, so you have the old name, the identifier, and then I want the new name, such that if I list it, I have it here. Okay. Then what you can also do, you have the dot. So if you use dot, it means that you have the current file, okay, the current location. Then if you have the dot dot, it means that you have the previous level. Like we have that one with cd dot dot, like in this case, and you return, okay, one directory before it. Okay. Also, you see that you have permissions. So for this ls minus la, okay, you have them one by one. And first of all, this D is for a directory. Whether you have lines, it means that you have files. Okay, and you also see them differently, such that these folders are colored in blue and the files are not. After which you have the permissions. You have the permissions for the owner, being these first three. So you have the read, write, and execute permission, which is for the owner, okay, you as a user. Then you have the group. So the group, what they can do is to read and execute, but they cannot write. After which you have all the others, okay. So all the others, if you have a network of computers and you have access to resources, it means if you do provide them or not that permission. Okay. So let's see. You can also add a permission or not. Let's see for this computer networks. Okay. So you can remove the permission, or you have this ch mode. Okay, so you change the mode and then you need to say for whom. Let's say for all the others you wanted to also have some write permission. But you need to say for what. So you will have computer networks. And then if I want to list again, you see that computer networks was modified and it has all the permissions for it. You can also take it away with minus. So even here, I can take it away. And so you have the O, you have the U for the user, as well as you have the G for the group. So whether you want to have multiple permissions, you can say that you have the CH mode, then you as a user, okay, maybe you want to take away the execute, then you want the group to have the read, write, and execute permission, as well as you want to have for the others also to write and execute based on a certain component. So it would be this directory. Okay, this is so it means that this one is based on the file. So it would be, we have the read, write, and execute. Okay, so it is equal to that one. Should be. read write X. So it is for the user. Owner group. Read writing. Read write execute. CH mode, and you have them one by one. Okay, let's have it with the plus. This is the way how you provide. All right, let's have just one mode. Maybe it's because of the whole simulation of computer networks. Okay, now it works. So if I also add, okay, let's say in the same manner, read, write, execute. Okay, yeah, it doesn't want to put it in multiple manner. Okay, concatenate. So you have it just one by one. So even the group, you can take away, let's say, the execute part. Okay, so in the end, if you do the ls, ls. Okay, you have it one by one based on the permissions which you assign or you took away. Then what you can also do is to provide these permissions with numbers. So it means that 0 is no permission. Then 1 is like for the bits. So you think about 2 to power 0, 2 to power 1, and like that. So it means that for 1, I have the part on the rightmost. So it will be X for executing. Then we have 2. Okay, so 2 means on this position. And you will have the right permission. Then 3 is the sum between 1 and 2, meaning that we have the write and execute permission. Then we have the read permission. Read permission is 4, so it means 2 to power 2. This is why we have it on this position. Then 5 is when we read and execute, so we have the read and execute permission. 6 is the sum between 4 and 2, so we do read and write. And whether we do have 7, it means that we have all the permissions such that you can read, write, and execute. So you can even change the mode. You have CH mode, and let's say you have 777 for your computer networks. Okay, so if I do the listing, I have all the permissions assigned for it. Okay, so this 4 means that you would just have the read, and 3 is the sum between 2 and 1. So you can write and execute. Then what you can also do is to change the owner. With ch owner, you provide the name. You can change the group, and you can change the owner, okay, of a file list, or you can change the group also for a certain file list. Okay, then you can also have inside the environment, you can set variables. So you can add a variable test to be a value. So we can have it here as test being equal to some value. Let's say it is Cn. Okay, but it wants exactly to be placed like this. So remember that this is exactly, it uses bash. So this is why you should not put spaces between, okay? And this is why you can also have commands with echo, and then as in bash, in order to get the value, you put a dollar in front of your variable, which is this test. Okay, so you call it with a dollar in front. And the same is available for functional programming. So even in Scala, you call all these variables with a dollar in front and with curly braces. Then you also have the path variable. For example, inside with bin, and you have all the users. You can also store inside the variables which you have. For example, PS is a shell variable. Okay, so you can have prompts, And for this one, the PS1, you can use, for example, the current time. You can use the current date with /d. You can also add a new line, or you can have the shell environment. If you have the slash of W with uppercase, would be the working directory. With lowercase, it would be the path of the working directory. If you have the lowercase u, this corresponds to the username. You can even get the host. Okay, so it is like here you will get the username host. Okay, for it, and you get it one by one. Okay, so it would be like this PS1, and then it equals, and you've got a string like you will have the user, for example. Okay, and then you see that you have this onworks. Okay, and it puts it here as the at the beginning, and you have this one. All right, so you will have to quit. Okay. So just simply enter this command. Okay. I don't know. Right. Was Q. We have quit this one. Yeah, it simply exits it. Okay, and this one becomes your prompt. So this prompt is like at the beginning. Okay. So here you will have the new prompt as being this pwd, and you define which would be the beginning of your variable. Okay. Then what you can also do is to have the ps2. So you have it as another shell variable. So it means that here you will have another prompt like this one. Okay, so as you have the ps and you add the user in front, and based on the other characters, you have it one by one. Okay, and it simply changes the part which you have here at the beginning. As you can see, you can simply not see anymore the user, and here you have the whole station. Then what you can also have is to see the home directory, or if you want to see the language, so you will have the echo for it. So you have the echo of of home, for example, and you see it, or you can have the path, you have the time zone, okay, the user ID. Okay, so with this DZ. Okay, this is based on this machine, and it doesn't want to show it. So if we put the language, okay, it is in English with UTF-8. All right. Then we can also print files. So you have the command with PR. And for the printing command, you can also have several columns with -K. You can have double spaces for the output. You can even add a header. Okay, you can also take away the header, and as well as the margins which you have on top and bottom with -T. You can set the page length, okay, based on lines. So by default, you have 56 lines, but you can change. Okay. Also, what you can do is to set the margin. So by default, you have 0 spaces, as well as you can set the page width. Okay, so you have all these options. You have the PR command, and then based on the options, you also provide your file name at the end, such that you can also see the content of a file. Okay, so here we can enter. Let's see, you are having computer networks. Okay, and what I can do is to have the echo content inside the file .txt. So if I list, I can have the cat of f.txt, and I see exactly the content which I added inside the file. Then what I can do is to also print the file, okay, and you have these two columns in a header with likes based on the file which we provide as the last argument. And according to this command, you will have a status for your printer. So we can also use LP, okay, such that you can print, as well as you can see the status of the printer. So you have the LP stat, and you will have the printer name associated to a certain user. So for example, we have John. Also, we have the LP queue. Okay, queue is like in formal languages and automata, you have the state, and it means that you will have for your printer the active rank based on the owner, and you have exactly what you want to print according to a job name. So maybe if you don't want to print, you will remove based on it. And you also have the dimension of your file, such that when you want to just quit this whole job, it means that you can cancel the request for a certain printer. So like this one, okay, because you know it with LP stat, which is your printer, as well as you can cancel your based on the ID. So it is based on the job. Okay, so for example, it is this number or this 573. Okay. Similarly, you can send an email. So you have the option with mail, then you have the -s for subject. You also have the CC and BCC. So you have the carbon copy and the blind carbon copy, such that if you put somebody in this blind carbon copy, okay, the others which are in as your destination or your CC, okay, they will not see the persons who are in the blind carbon copy. Okay. Such that based on it, you can also attach a file. So attaching a file is when you have this less than and you have exactly your incoming file. Then also you can use pipes. So all these pipes, okay, I will make this one bigger because this one did quit. It's no activity. Okay. Pipes is when you have several commands and you want the output of the first section to be used by the next one. So for example, you want to print everything, but you also wanted to add a regular expression such that I want to have those which contain August, okay, as a name. So I have a document which is August and it will simply find it. Or we have this document such that you list, and then you want to have this -i. So this is for upper or lower case. Okay, so you have several options. You have the -v. So they would be the lines which do not match the pattern for which you are searching. Then you also have this -n. Okay, so to print which would be the matched lines and which would be the number where you find it. So for example, you have a file and I want to see where I can find some words, and it would be based on the line number. So it is like in Notepad++, where you see the line number. Then you also have to print the name of the files which have some matching lines. So you have this -l. Also, you can even count them with -c. So with this -i is case insensitive, and I want to have those lines which have Carol, okay, and they can be followed or not, okay, by this August. So this is why you have this star, okay, as being a regular expression based on which you search. Then what you can do is to also sort the lines of your text alphabetically. So you can have the sort according to your file, and it can be numerically. So in this case, you have this sort of a plus for n. So in this way, you just skip the 4 fields which you have. Okay, so fields where they are separated by spaces. What you can also do is to also revert the order, or what you can do is to sort as well as uppercase and lowercase with each of them. So you have the minus f, as well as you have the plus x. So you can even ignore some fields. So for example, over here, you want to list, you want to have those files which contain August, you want to do the sorting, but to also skip 4 fields. And then with this more command, it means that you can navigate through the output. So you don't get it as with cat to get the whole content. You can navigate through it according to your browser. Okay. So for example, in this way, you will have several processes, and these processes, they run in foreground, okay, so you can see it, as well as in background. And whatever process you start, it always exists, okay, in the background, because you can find it based on the process ID, and whether it freezes, you can simply kill it. So let's see. First of all, you have the option with the PS. So this means that you have a process status. So you can see this process status with full option, meaning that you have the user. You have, as you can see, this PID is a process ID. And you also have the PPID, because this is in fact the parent process. And based on threads, you will have these children. Okay. And if they remain without any parent, they are called zombie processes. Right. Then you also have how much of the CPU they use for the C. You also have the start time for it. You also have the terminal, which is associated to it. You have the time of the CPU, which is used by the process, as well as you have the command. Okay, you have the command which simply just started the creation of the current process. Also with the PS, you have several options. So you have this -A, okay, so you see all the users. You have the -X, so you have those processes that do not have the terminal. So they run in the background. You also have the -U, okay, for the user, for which you can add the -F to have the full option to see each and every detail, as well as you have this extended option. So let's see, for the PS-F, you have all these values, and maybe some process just freezed, some frame, for example, so a window. And based on the process ID, so this is your current process, this PPID in fact is the parent ID. So you can kill based on it. And whether the command gets ignored, you can force it and use this kill -9, and then you have the process ID. What you can also see is to have all those processes which use the CPU the most, meaning that you have the top command. Then you can also do the ping. So if you want to have a host and to know where it is placed, so for example, the google.com, you will find out the IP after sending for packages, and it will say whether or not it reached the destination. Then you have the file transfer protocol. So this is similar to what you saw in Cisco Packet Tracer. But for it, as you can see, after doing the FTP, you can also get to list all the directories with D. You can even enter a certain directory. You can also download a file with get according to the file which exists. You can also add a file with the put command. You can have the mput. Okay, so this would be to add multiple files. Okay, as well as you can have the command with mget according to your file list. So you get multiple files from your server. Also, you can do the prompting. So this means that you will be announced at the end to upload or to download, okay? as well as you can turn it on or off such that you can get or not the warnings. Then, so you've seen that dir is for listing everything that you have on your remote machine. So this file transfer protocol and certain server, as well as you have the LCD. So you would change this directory to your directory on your local machine, as well as at the end, you simply have the quit command. Then you have the VI editor. Inside the VI editor, so you can have the VI of your file to see what it has. Then you can have it just in read mode with this -R, as well as you have the view, so just to open it. Now, when you want to insert in it, you need to press the keyword I, and then you can start inserting. And whether you want to quit, you just have the X, and you have the two dots, and then you have the quit command with this exclamation mark, such that you quit, or you can also save what you did. So it means that you have this write and quit. Okay. But you can also use Nano, or you have Gedit, you have Genie, and there are other ways of using the VI. So inside the VI, you can also have shortcuts such that the command with K, you will simply move up one line. You have J for moving down one line. H is when you move to the left, okay, based on your row where you are positioned. L would be to move to the right. So this is similar like when you play in games. Then you have the X, whether you want to delete a character when you are placed. You also have this uppercase X if you want to delete the character before, okay, the position where you are. You have the DW, okay, so you delete it up to the next word, as well as you have this D, and then like you put the sign for power, such that you just delete from the position until the beginning of the line. You have the D of dollar, such that from the current position you delete up to the end of the line. So this is the opposite of this power sign. Then you can also have the D with uppercase. So from the current position, you also delete to the end of just the current line. Then you have the DD, so it means that you simply delete the line where you've got the cursor. Okay. Also, what you can have is to use the regular expression. So you have this stead. It is a stream editor. And for example, you have the cat, what you have inside, for example, it's a of password. And for the set, you will be using a pattern. So for example, you can delete all the lines with it. So after you get the content of your file, you have the pipe and you have the set of D such that you delete all the lines. So you can have, instead of D, you can have a P. So you print the line, as well as you can delete the lines with this D. Or what you can have is to use a substitution. So you would have the S, and then you have pattern 1 and pattern 2, which you provide like here. So it means that what you can do is to substitute root with a certain username which you want to have, as well as you can use it to have a global substitution. So you have another slash here at the end of G. So that as a recap, so when you navigate through the file system, you have the cat and file name. So when you want to display the whole content of a file, you can even move inside a directory with CD. Then you can copy one file and to have the copy of file 1 as being the file 2, so you can add a new name. You can even specify the location where you want to have it, so it can be the relative location, or you can put the whole path. Then you can also see which is the type of a file, so whether it's a binary, a text file, an executable file. So you have the file and the file name, which you provide as an argument. Then you can even find it. So you can have this command with find. You've got the file name, and based on the directory where you want to search, according to what you have inside the file, you can see just the beginning of it by using head, and then you have your file name, or you can also have this less. Okay, so it means that you will have to browse according to the file name which you provide from end, okay, or beginning, so it depends. Then you have the ls, such that you will have the content of the directory which you've seen, and you can add options like -l or -la to see all the details about it. You can create a directory with mkdir. Then you can browse a file. So with this more, it means that you start from beginning to end. This one with less, so it depends on the dimension of the file. Okay, because you get just a portion of it and you browse until the end. Okay, then you can have an MV. So MV can also move. So if you provide a file, and whether you're in the same path, what it will do, it will be to rename the file. Okay, so you will have the new name for it. PVD is to print the current working directory. Then you can even remove a file with rm. Whether you want to remove a directory which is empty, you have the rmdir according to the directory name. But if you have something inside the directory, you need a command with rm-r, and you will have the recursive delete for it. Then you can have the tail. So when using tail, it will simply take you to the end of your file. If you have touch, it will simply create a file. And if you do as I did before with echo, and then you put between the quotes the content of a file, and then you have that one greater than, it will simply insert the text from the echo inside the file which you provide, and it will also create it. So you have both steps included. You can also have the command to see where you can find the file with the command with where for which you provide the file name. You can also have the which file name, so it will simply show whether this file exists or not inside the path. So this is when you think, like, for example, for your Java binaries, whether they are or not with the Java runtime engine inside the path. Okay. What you can also see is to have the disk free. So based on the disk free command, you see how much of it is used. So you will have your partitions, and based on your partitions, you see which is the memory, okay, how much is used, how much is available, and it's also computed, for example, how much of it is used. Then it is whether it's mounted or not, such that you can have an external partition which you add and it will be displayed. So maybe you have, like this one, a device. Then you can have the disk usage for a certain directory, like etc. What you can do is to also use an ISO file and to mount it such that you obtain a virtual image. So this is like when you want, based on an ISO file, to create, let's say, on a stick, you can simulate that you've got a CD if you want to install, let's say, a version of Windows or Office, and this is how you create the image of it. As well as for your virtual machine, in fact, you use this ISO file in order to install, for example, Ubuntu. And at the end of using it, you will simply unmount such that you won't have it as a device. Then you can also add groups. So you can add a group called developers, and for it you can even modify it. So you have the group mode, okay, and you will have the new name and also the old name for it. You can also add the user, okay, you have the home, so it is the directory. You can provide the group for it, as well as you have the commands to which it has access. So it's a shell and the user ID, so being this account name. So you can add this user, so the account of MC Moch, and you want to edit the home directory to be for home, and you want it to belong to the group which is developers. Okay, so this will be the one. Then you can even set the password for that user, so it will be this mecmochd, for which you assign the password. What you can also modify is to change the home directory. Okay, so you would just have the user mode, okay, for it, and you will have the instead, so to change it from mecmochd, you wanted to make it mecmochd of 20, so this would be the one, meaning that the new home will have 20 at the end. You can also delete the users. You have the user, you have a recursive delete for all, for everything that it has inside, and you provide the name of the user as having this one with 20 at the end. So you can add a user, you can modify a user, you can delete it, as and the same is available for groups. So again, you can add, modify, or delete in a similar manner. So also as a recap, for the system performance, for example, you have this nice or really nice. This is when you have a scheduled priority. So this is how you run all the programs when you start the computer. Then you also have the net stat. This means that you will have the network connection. So you have the routing tables. You know which interface you use, which IP is for your station. You also have the time command. Okay, as well as you have the uptime, so you have the system's load value, the average value for it. You have also the PS. This is in order to display all the processes which you've got. You also have the VM stat, so this means that you have the statistics for a virtual memory. You have also the gprof, so this is a graph for the profile data, like you have your email address and it will belong to a certain domain, or here to a certain group. Then you have the process profiling. As you've seen, you have the parent process and you have the children, and you also have this stop command so that you see the top system task. Then what you can have, you see that you have those commands. Okay, so when using an environment like on Windows, you will have different commands. So inside CMD, a command like ls does not exist, but we have the equivalent, which is this dir command, and you see all the directories, but also the files. So it is pretty similar, but still here we don't have that permissions with minus. We see that we don't have the directory mentioned. So for example, here you have a program. Okay, and you can find all these equivalent commands at this website. Okay, and for it, you see that for the path that you provide here, it will simply display what you've got inside. So let's see with IntelliJ. Okay, let's have this one. All right, let's have a new package. So I want a new package. I want the CN. And inside it, I want a new file and have a shell, this shell test. Okay, so for it, let's just paste this one, not waste time for it. All right, and this is a shell T. Good. Let's see. So this one, yeah, this is just the command array which I provide. So here you can add multiple commands. This is what you will have to do. You will have to change the command array such that you have the output And here it will list everything which is inside the documents. Okay, so you will have one by one exactly what exists at your path. So let's see, here you have a buffered reader. Then you have an exception whether the path exists or not. So you have this input-output exception. And then you have the stream reader to get line by line, such that you will have a command. Okay, you will have based on the C partition, and I want to use the command with dir such that I see the content of what I have at this path. Okay, so what would happen over here is to execute according to your command. So this is when you have a command array, and for it you have to read a stream, and based on which is the output for it, you just provide line by line what exists. So you will print it, and it is exactly what is outputted over here. As you can see, there are directories as well as this one is a file. Okay. So what you have to do is to check, so just to remember the Linux command, so you can run some of the command which you find more interesting or new. Then you will have to ping the address of google.com such that you will see which is the IP that is found behind it. After which you want to create a new folder. You have the folder music, which exists inside documents. Okay, so you can have two paths. So you provide a path towards documents, and you can provide or the relative or the absolute path for the music. Then you can copy a file to another location. So you would just provide which is the path of a new location. Okay, this is when you want to copy a directory, and starting from one source, you want to have a copy for it in a new folder, so you will have a new destination. You can also delete a file, so you have it with rm. Then if you want to delete a directory and its subdirectory, so everything it has inside, including the files, you have that command with rm -r to have the recursive delete for it. As well as you want to move a file which is placed inside a folder, and you want to move it such that it will exist exactly in another folder. So you need to provide this path, and you will have the mv command for it. Okay, so you will move it. Then you can also rename the moved file. So being at the certain path, you have the same mv command, and you have the old file name and the new file name as an argument. Okay, so it will be renamed being inside the same folder. Okay. And what you will have to do, so you solve these in using Linux, but you should also have the command in Java. So you should find out here which is this command such that you can solve these exercises, because I am sure that you already know how to solve it since the first year of your faculty, but you didn't use the commands with Windows DOS. So what you will have to do, you can also test it in this terminal, and then you simply update your command array inside your IDE, okay, as I did over here. And this was when we were listing absolutely everything. So you need to use the code which is provided here such that you run these commands. Okay, you have 8 steps that you need to do from 2 to 9. So I will stop recording.